The city never sleeps, but that night, it felt like it was holding its breath. We were chasing shadows through the streets, and every turn could have been our last. I could hear the engines roar, the tires screech, and the distant sirens of other units trying to assist, but none of it mattered. It was just us, the cartel, and the streets that had become a deadly maze. The adrenaline was coursing through my veins, and every instinct I had was screaming to move faster, think faster, anticipate their next move. I've been in plenty of high-risk operations before, but nothing like this. The cartel had split up, moving through the city in different directions, and each moment we hesitated, they gained ground. I had my team with me, but I could feel the tension in the air. Everyone knew that in a chase like this, one mistake could cost us everything. The streets were filled with people unaware of the danger, and we had to navigate through them carefully while keeping our target in sight. The chase started. At the outskirts of the city, one of the cartel's vehicles had been spotted leaving a warehouse, and we were right behind them. I gave the signal to the team, and we moved in unison. Mark took the lead with the tech on board, tracking every signal they emitted. Jess and I flanked from the side streets, anticipating their route. The cityscape was a blur, neon lights flashing across our vision, the wind whipping against our faces, but our focus was razor-sharp. Every second felt like an eternity. The cartel was armed, and I knew they wouldn't hesitate to fire if they felt cornered. One shot, one wrong maneuver, and someone could be down. I had to keep my cool, stay one step ahead, and make sure my team did the same. The pressure was immense, but I had trained for this. We had trained for everything, yet the unpredictability of the city made this mission different. As we turned the corner, one of the cartel's cars tried to ram through the barricade. I had to act fast. I shouted instructions, and my team responded instantly. Jess blocked one path while Mark positioned our vehicle to cut them off. I could see the driver's desperation through the windshield. They were cornered, but they weren't ready to surrender. I gritted my teeth and prepared for the next move. The chase continued through narrow alleys, over bridges, and underpasses. Each turn brought a new challenge, a new threat. Pedestrians scattered, the roar of engines and screech of tires filling the night. I could feel my heart pounding, my senses heightened. Every move the cartel made was calculated. Every attempt to escape met with our counter. It was a dangerous dance, one where one slip could end in disaster. At one point, the lead vehicle took a sharp turn into an underground parking structure. I signaled the team to split up and cover both exits. My eyes scanned the area, looking for any sign of their next move. The confined space amplified the danger. Bullets could ricochet, engines could collide, and the slightest misstep could take out an entire squad. We moved strategically, carefully, yet with the urgency of knowing that every second mattered. Through it all, I kept thinking about the stakes. This wasn't just about catching cartel members, it was about keeping the city safe, protecting innocent lives, and ensuring my team made it through alive. The responsibility weighed heavily on me, but I couldn't let it cloud my judgment. Every command I gave, every maneuver I made, had to be perfect. There was no room for error. Finally, we cornered the lead vehicle near a bridge overlooking the river. The cartel members were desperate, their movements frantic. I could see the fear in their eyes, the realization that escape was no longer possible. But I also knew they were dangerous, unpredictable. One wrong move, and someone could be killed. I signaled the team to hold positions, wait for my go. I approached cautiously, keeping my weapon ready, eyes scanning for any hidden threats. The team followed my lead, staying close but maintaining coverage. Time seemed to slow as I got closer to the vehicle. Every step, every breath was measured, and then, just like that, it was over. The cartel members surrendered, hands raised, defeated but still dangerous. As I looked at my team, exhausted but alive, I felt a mix of relief and tension. The chase had ended, but the city was still a dangerous place. This was one mission completed, one battle won, but the war against crime never stops. We had survived, but we had also learned valuable lessons about trust, teamwork, and vigilance. I took a deep breath, letting the night air fill my lungs. My team was behind me, weary but unbroken, and I knew, no matter what came next, we would face it together. The city would keep moving, criminals would keep scheming, and we would keep chasing them because that's what we do. We are SWAT. We are the line between chaos and order, and I will never stop leading my team, no matter the danger, no matter the cost. The chase was over, for now, but I knew deep down, this was only one of many battles to come, and as long as I drew breath, Emily Parker and her team would be ready. Asterisk the night had swallowed the city whole, but I could still see everything with crystal clarity. Every streetlight, every shadowed alley, every glimmer of movement was seared into my mind. The adrenaline hadn't left my system. It was still pumping hot and fast, keeping me hyper-aware, every sense sharpened to the point of discomfort. I could hear the faint hum of a distant engine, the echo of a stray cat darting into the shadows, the clatter of a loose piece of metal bouncing along the pavement. But none of that mattered. All that mattered was the cartel, and all that mattered was keeping my team alive. I remember gripping the edge of the car, leaning out just enough to get a better view of the streets ahead. My knuckles were white, my heart hammering. The city was a maze, a tangle of streets and overpasses, alleys and fire escapes. And somewhere in it all were people who had decided that my team and I didn't deserve to live. I felt the weight of responsibility settle over my shoulders, heavier than any armor I'd ever worn. Every life in that team rested on my choices, and every choice had to be perfect. The chase had become relentless. We'd been pursuing them for hours now, and they were clever, too clever for their own good. They knew the city as well as I did. They knew which streets would give them a brief advantage, which rooftops offered a fleeting escape, and yet, every time they made a move, we were there, countering, adjusting, staying one step ahead. It wasn't luck, it was training, instinct, and sheer willpower. But still, there were moments when I could feel doubt creep in. What if we miscalculated? What if a single turn, a single hesitation, cost someone their life? I shoved the thought away, focusing only on the next move, the next intersection, the next breath. Mark was beside me, eyes glued to the tablet in his hands, tracking the GPS signals we had managed to triangulate. Jess stayed low in the passenger seat, scanning the streets for movement, her expression tense. I could feel her anxiety, the tightness in her jaw, the way her hands clenched and unclenched. We had been through plenty together, but even veterans like us felt the weight of a hunt like this. It wasn't just the cartel, it was the city itself conspiring against us. Pedestrians, traffic, narrow corners, anything could turn into a fatal mistake. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing mind. You'd think, after years of this job, I'd have learned to handle it, to push down the fear and adrenaline, but it never got easier. Every chase, every confrontation, every moment where life and death hung in a balance reminded me that we were human, vulnerable, fallible. That knowledge both terrified and motivated me. I couldn't let it paralyze me. I had to channel it, use it to sharpen every decision I made. The cartel had split their vehicles, spreading across the city like venom through veins. Our team divided accordingly, maintaining a delicate balance between pursuit and strategy. I kept my eyes on the rearview mirrors, constantly scanning, constantly adjusting. One of their cars took a sudden turn into an alleyway barely wide enough for a single car. I made a snap decision to follow, signaling to the team to cover other exits. We were threading the needle, moving through the city's arteries with precision and caution. The walls of the alley loomed high on either side, dark and oppressive. I could feel the tension pressing down on my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to stay alert. As we advanced, a shadow moved across a rooftop. I froze, my body reacting before my brain could catch up. Another vehicle had tried to flank us from the opposite side, and if I hadn't noticed it, they could have blocked our exit. The second we realized the maneuver, Mark relayed the information to the others, and we adjusted. It was like a high-stakes chess game where the board was constantly shifting and the pieces moved without warning. Each decision, each movement, could mean life or death. The chase led us over a series of bridges spanning the river, their metal girders creaking under the stress of the vehicles and the weight of the night. From above, the city lights looked peaceful, serene even, but we knew better. The calm was deceptive, a fragile mask over the chaos below. I kept the accelerator pressed, weaving through the traffic with calculated precision. I could feel the sweat running down my spine, stinging my eyes, but I didn't flinch. There was no time for flinching. Not now. Not when the stakes were this high. Somewhere in the maze of streets, one of the cartel's vehicles swerved dangerously, trying to shake us off. It bounced over a pothole, tires squealing, and I caught a glimpse of the driver's face, desperation, fear, and determination all mingling in his expression. He was willing to risk everything, and I understood that. I felt the same fire inside me. Survival wasn't just a matter of luck, it was about willpower, strategy, and trusting your team. And in that moment, I knew we were all in it together. Hours seemed to stretch into an eternity. Every turn, every alley, every intersection was a potential trap. Yet somehow, we kept pushing forward. I reminded myself to breathe, even if only for a second, to feel the rhythm of the city beneath us. The sounds, the lights, the scent of exhaust and asphalt, all of it was part of the environment we had to navigate, part of the battlefield. I had trained for this, and yet every new moment felt unpredictable, like the city itself was alive and testing us, measuring our resolve. We began to notice patterns. The cartel was trying to head toward the industrial district, where narrow roads and storage facilities could give them cover. I signaled to the team, rerouting to intercept. It was risky, high stakes, but we had no choice. They had to be stopped before they could regroup. Every second was life or death, not just for us, but for the people in the city who had no idea, the battle raging just a few streets away, that at one point, the lead car attempted a desperate maneuver, trying to ram a barricade we had set up. Instinctively, I shouted commands, and the team moved with precision. Jess blocked an exit. Mark coordinated our positioning, and I maneuvered to cut off the vehicle's path. The driver's panic was palpable, their eyes wide with fear, but they underestimated us. They underestimated the bond we had as a team. Coordination, trust, and instinct were our weapons, and in that moment, they were stronger than fear or desperation. We continued the pursuit through narrow alleys and underpasses, the tension never letting up. Each movement had to be exact, each decision, split second. I could feel the adrenaline, the pure, raw focus that came from knowing one wrong step could end everything. I relied on my instincts, my experience, and my team. They were extensions of myself, each one tuned into the rhythm of the chase, each aware of the dangers and ready to act. Somewhere along the route, we encountered civilians unaware of the danger and scattered across the streets. It complicated everything. We had to maneuver carefully, protect the innocent, and still keep the cartel in sight. The city had become a living, breathing entity, a maze of light and shadow, chaos and opportunity. Every sound, every reflection, every subtle movement mattered. There was no margin for error. The pursuit carried on through the industrial district, and every corner seemed more dangerous than the last. Rusted warehouses and abandoned factories lined the streets, their shadows stretching across the road like giant, silent sentinels. I could see the cartel vehicles weaving between the structures, trying to lose us in the maze of metal and darkness. My mind was sharp, every sense alive, analyzing their speed, their trajectory, anticipating their next move before they even made it. This wasn't just a chase, it was a test of endurance, skill, and mental fortitude. Mark's voice crackled through the radio, calm but tense. They're splitting up again, two heading north toward the docks, one taking the alley network west. I swallowed hard and adjusted our route. Jess, you take the west alley. Mark, follow the northern route. I'll stay with the main vehicle. Keep your eyes sharp. One wrong step, and this ends badly for all of us. The city seemed alive, every sound amplified in the dark, the clatter of loose metal, the echo of distant footsteps, the distant rumble of traffic. It all blended into a chaotic symphony. But I had learned to listen to the chaos, to find the patterns hidden within it. Every distraction was an opportunity, every moment of chaos, a chance to predict their next move. As we approached the docks, the northern vehicles tried a daring maneuver, cutting through a maze of shipping containers. I could see their desperation, their eyes scanning for any exit. But I had been here before. I had navigated these streets countless times. I knew the layout. Every container, every crane, every shadowed corner was part of the battlefield. We moved like one organism, coordinated and precise. The chase intensified, tires screeched, engines roared, and the night air was thick with tension and exhaust. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the blood rushing in my ears. But amidst the chaos, I felt a strange clarity. This was what I was trained for. This was what I was born to do. Jess's voice broke through the tension. Emily, they're trying to flank us. Alley entrance, blocked. I made a snap decision. We're going over the crates. Mark, cover us from the north. Jess, stay with the west flank. Move. Our vehicles soared over the stacked shipping containers, landing with a jolt that sent a shiver through my spine. I could see the cartel members' faces, twisted with fear and anger. They hadn't expected us to be this fast, this determined, and I knew then that our training, our instincts, and our bond as a team were going to carry us through this night. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Every turn revealed new dangers, rusted metal, unexpected pedestrians, scattered debris, but we adapted, reacting instinctively, a rhythm built from countless missions and shared trust. I could feel the weight of my responsibility pressing down on me, heavier than ever. Every life on my team rested in my hands. Every choice, every decision was critical. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we cornered the main vehicle at the edge of the harbor. Water stretched out beyond it, dark and impenetrable. The cartel driver skidded to a halt, realizing escape was no longer an option. I could see the panic in their eyes, the moment when desperation turns into recklessness. I approached cautiously, keeping my weapon ready, eyes scanning for hidden threats. Mark and Jess flanked the vehicle, providing coverage. The air was thick with tension, every heartbeat echoing like a drum. One misstep, one false move, and this could end in tragedy. But my training, my instincts, and my unwavering focus guided me forward. The driver finally surrendered, hands raised. The other cartel members followed suit, their faces twisted in a mix of fear, frustration, and disbelief. We had done it. The chase was over, the immediate threat neutralized. But as I looked at them, I knew this wasn't the end. The deeper layers of the cartel, the people pulling the strings, were still out there, and they weren't going to give up easily. I took a deep breath, letting the night air fill my lungs, trying to steady my racing heart. My team gathered around me, exhausted but alive. Their faces were a mix of relief and tension, pride and fear. We had survived something deadly, something that could have ended at any moment. And yet, there was no time to relax. There was always another mission, another threat, another challenge waiting in the shadows. I glanced at my team, seeing the sweat and dirt on their faces, the raw determination in their eyes. We were more than a team. We were a unit, bonded by countless hours of training, danger, and shared experience. We had fought together, bled together, and survived together. And that bond, that trust, was what would carry us through whatever came next. Even as we processed the events, I could feel the city around us. It was quiet now, the chaos temporarily subdued, but it was always lurking beneath the surface. Crime didn't sleep, danger didn't rest, and we couldn't afford to either. Every mission reminded me that the line between life and death is razor thin, that every choice has consequences, and that vigilance is the only thing keeping us alive. I thought about the cartel members we had captured. Fear, anger, and desperation were written all over their faces. They hadn't expected us to be this relentless, this coordinated, and that realization gave me a strange sense of satisfaction, a confirmation that our training, our instincts, and our unity could overcome even the most cunning opponents. But alongside that satisfaction came the weight of reality. This mission, as intense and dangerous as it had been, was just one battle in a much larger war. There were more threats out there, more people willing to risk everything to disrupt the city, more criminals ready to exploit any weakness, and I knew that the next time, the stakes would be even higher. I looked at my team again. They were tired, every muscle screaming, adrenaline slowly fading, but their eyes told me everything I needed to know. We would keep going. We would keep fighting. No matter the risk, no matter the danger, we would face it together, because that's what we do. We are SWAT. We are the shield, the sword, the line between chaos and order. Asterisk. I took one last glance at the city skyline, the lights shimmering in the distance. The streets that had been the battlefield tonight would return to normal, at least on the surface. But beneath it all, the shadows would remain, and so would we, ready, alert, and unyielding. The chase was over, but the war was not. And I, Emily Parker, would be ready for whatever came next. Asterisk. The calm that settled over the harbor was deceptive. Even as the cartel members sat subdued, the city around us breathed with an undercurrent of tension. As if anticipating the next eruption of violence, I could feel it in my bones, the knowledge that this was far from over. Every alleyway, every rooftop, every shadowed corner could hide the next threat. And as leader, the weight of that knowledge pressed on me heavier than any bulletproof vest ever could. I glanced at my team. Mark was checking the containment perimeters, his hands steady despite the tension that never fully left his expression. Jess, ever vigilant, scanned the distant streets for movement, as if the city itself had become an extension of her senses. Daniel, whose loyalty I still questioned, stayed silent but alert. I could feel his unease radiating off him, and though I couldn't afford to second-guess him now, I filed it away. Observations like these are crucial. They tell you more than words ever could. The captured cartel members were cooperative. Now, their bravado replaced by fear. They knew the tables had turned. Yet, even in their defeat, I could sense the seeds of defiance, the mental calculations of escape routes, the contingency plans they had buried in their minds. This wasn't about them surviving the night, it was about them still trying to control what they could. That realization reminded me why we did what we did, not just to stop the immediate threat, but to dismantle the networks, the infrastructure that allowed chaos to flourish. We moved the captives to the temporary holding site. The journey was tense. Every turn and every approach to an intersection was calculated. The streets were eerily quiet now, as if the city itself had exhaled, waiting to see if we would slip. I reminded myself that even when things appear calm, the potential for disaster is always present. That's the reality of this line of work, and it's why we train relentlessly, why we rehearse scenarios until they become instinct, why trust in each other is absolute. Once the captives were secured, I called the team together for a quick debrief. Exhaustion etched lines into their faces, but their eyes remained sharp, burning with the adrenaline-fueled clarity that only comes from surviving a high-stakes mission. I felt the familiar surge of responsibility, the weight of leadership that never lets you rest fully, even when the immediate threat is neutralized. "We did good tonight," I said, my voice firm but low. "But don't get comfortable. This is just one layer. There are more players, more threats waiting, and we need to be ready." Mark nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "I can feel it, Emily. Whoever sent these guys isn't done. This was just a warning." Jess's hand tightened on her tablet. "Agreed. We have intel on 2 other cells that might mobilize if they realize we're onto them. We need to anticipate their next move." I looked at them, my chest tightening with a mix of pride and concern. We anticipate, we adapt, and we move as one. Every step we take from here on out has to be precise. We can't leave room for error. As we regrouped and started mapping out the next phase, I couldn't help but reflect on the night's events. The chase, the danger, the split-second decisions, it all comes down to trust, instincts, and preparation. That's the core of our survival. I've always known this, but nights like this cement it. The line between victory and disaster is razor-thin, and you only survive by respecting it. Hours later, after ensuring the immediate perimeter was secure, I found a quiet moment on a rooftop overlooking the city. The lights below shimmered, deceptively peaceful. I let myself breathe, even if just for a second, feeling the adrenaline ebbing away. The city had won this night. In a sense, it reminded us that the chaos was always lurking beneath the surface. But we were ready. We had survived. We had adapted. And we had taken control of the immediate threat. In that brief stillness, I allowed myself to think about the team. Each of them had performed flawlessly under extreme pressure. But I also saw where improvements were needed, where instincts had to sharpen, where coordination could be tighter. Leadership isn't just about giving orders. It's about seeing the potential pitfalls before they happen, guiding the team through uncertainty, and ensuring that even when fear takes hold, discipline and training prevail. I reflected on my own role, how I had reacted, how I had directed, how every decision had carried consequences. I had faced countless threats before. But this night reminded me that the unpredictability of human behavior, of sheer chaos, is something no amount of training can fully prepare you for. And yet, it's in those moments, the crucible of danger, that true leadership is forged. Even as the city slept, I knew the war was far from over. The cartel's network was vast, their resources deep, and their reach extended beyond what we could immediately see. The captured operatives were only a fraction of the threat. Behind them lay the architects of chaos, those who manipulated, bribed, and controlled from the shadows. And if we were to truly dismantle their influence, we would have to go further, strike harder, and think smarter than ever before. But for now, we had survived, and survival, in this line of work, is everything. It's the foundation on which we rebuild, the moment from which strategy begins, the spark that fuels perseverance. I felt the weight of that truth in every muscle, in every heartbeat, in every exhausted glance exchanged with my team. We were tired, but we were unbroken, and as I watched the first hints of dawn touch the skyline, painting the city in muted golds and blues, I felt a quiet determination settle over me. The night had tested us, pushed us to the limits of endurance and focus, but it had also reminded me why I do this, why I choose this life, this line of work, this responsibility. Because in moments of chaos, when lives hang in the balance, and every decision matters, you see who you are. You see the strength, the resolve, the courage that you and your team possess. I knew this was only the beginning. There would be more chases, more threats, more nights when every second counted. And I would be there, leading my team, making split-second decisions, facing the city's darkness head-on. Because that's what we do. That's who we are. We are SWAT. And no matter what comes next, Emily Parker will be ready. The hours after the capture were a strange mix of relief and tension. My team and I gathered in the safe house, going over every detail, replaying the chase in our minds. The city outside seemed quiet, but I knew better. Quiet nights like this were deceptive. They were the ones that hid the greatest threats. Somewhere in the shadows, the cartel's higher-ups were regrouping, planning, and calculating their next move. They wouldn't wait long to retaliate. I could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. Every decision I made carried consequences, not just for me, but for the people who relied on me, the team, the city, and the innocents caught in the crossfire. It was a burden I carried willingly, but it never got lighter. Leadership in this line of work wasn't about glory or recognition. It was about vigilance, strategy, and sacrifice. And tonight had reminded me of that truth more than ever. We spent the night debriefing and analyzing the chase, pinpointing areas where we could improve. Mark provided a detailed rundown of their maneuvers, how the cartels split into multiple directions, and how they attempted to exploit every corner of the city. Jess highlighted the patterns she had observed, noting inconsistencies in their behavior that could give us leverage next time. Daniel, as much as I distrusted him, had provided valuable insight into the cartel's network, though I kept a careful eye on him, knowing that trust could be a double-edged sword. Every detail mattered. One mistake, one oversight, and lives could be lost. The stakes were never just tactical, they were personal. I could feel the tension in the room, the shared awareness that every second of our actions mattered. And yet, despite the exhaustion etched into their faces, I could see the fire in my team's eyes. They were ready for the next challenge, and so was I. As dawn broke over the city, the streets bathed in a soft golden light, I stepped onto the rooftop to survey the skyline. From up here, the city looked peaceful, almost serene, but I knew the truth. Beneath that calm exterior, danger lurked, crime didn't sleep, corruption didn't rest, and those who thought they could manipulate the system would always test the limits of what we could endure. The city was a living, breathing battlefield, and we were its guardians. I reflected on the chase, the speed, the split-second decisions, the constant recalibration. Every move had been calculated, yet unpredictable. It was a dance with chaos, a battle where instincts and training had to align perfectly. I thought about the cartel members, their desperation, the moment when they realized they couldn't escape. There had been fear in their eyes, but also defiance. They had thought they could outsmart us, that their knowledge of the city would be enough, but they underestimated the bond we had as a team. The way trust and coordination amplified our capabilities beyond mere skill. The adrenaline from the chase had faded, replaced by a lingering tension. We had survived, yes, but the war was far from over. This mission was just one thread in a much larger web. Victor Reyes, the man at the top, was still out there. His network spanned beyond the streets we had just navigated, reaching into offices, high-rises, and even political corridors, and he was watching, undoubtedly aware of our presence and preparing his next move. Even in moments of reflection, I couldn't allow myself to relax. Leadership demanded constant vigilance. I thought about the lessons of the night, the split-second choices, the necessity of trusting instincts, the importance of observing both the environment and the human element. The streets were unpredictable, yes, but people were even more so, and understanding the psychology of our adversaries was just as important as understanding the city's layout. Hours passed, and the team rested while I remained on the rooftop, scanning the horizon. My thoughts drifted to the city itself, how every alley, every rooftop, every intersection could conceal danger. The lights below twinkled innocently, but I knew the shadows hid threats that would not announce themselves. It was a sobering realization, but also a motivating one. This city needed us, my team needed me, and failure was not an option. We began strategizing our next moves. The cartel's network was vast, and taking down their street-level operatives was only the beginning. We needed actionable intelligence, identification of key players, and the ability to anticipate their movements. Every unit, every asset, every connection could make a difference in the next encounter. I emphasized precision, patience, and adaptability. Our advantage lay not just in firepower, but in foresight and coordination. The team absorbed the strategy, each member contributing their perspective, their analysis. Mark's expertise in surveillance technology was unmatched. Jess's ability to decode patterns and predict movement was invaluable. Even Daniel, despite his questionable loyalty, provided insights into how the cartel operated. Together, we were more than the sum of our parts. Together, we were formidable. By mid-morning, the city had resumed its usual rhythm. Commuters streamed through the streets, oblivious to the night's chaos. But I saw the city differently now. Every corner, every alley, every vehicle became a potential hazard, a potential threat. This awareness wasn't paranoia, it was preparation. And as the leader, I had to maintain that vigilance, both for myself and for my team. We moved to review footage from the chase, analyzing every movement, every split-second decision. Each frame told a story. Every mistake, every near miss, every success became a lesson. We dissected it all, from the timing of turns to the choices of escape routes, ensuring that our next pursuit would be even more precise, even more controlled. The intensity of the night had been a crucible, forging a sharper, more resilient team. I took a moment to reflect on my role in all this. Leadership is often lonely. The decisions fall on you, and the consequences can be heavy. But it's also deeply human. It's about empathy, understanding, and commitment. Each member of my team trusted me with their lives, and that trust was sacred. I could feel the weight of that responsibility, but it wasn't crushing, it was empowering. It reminded me why I do this work, why I endured the fear and uncertainty, because people depend on us, because justice doesn't wait. That as the day wore on, we prepared for the next phase of operations. Reyes's network would not remain idle. They would attempt to regroup, to retaliate, to strike where we were vulnerable. We had to anticipate every contingency, map every potential threat, and act with precision. Every step, every decision, every maneuver had to be flawless. The team and I moved through the city, practicing drills, reviewing strategies, and coordinating our next moves. Even in the calm, there was a palpable tension. Each member knew that another encounter was imminent, that danger was never far, but there was also determination, the quiet, resolute confidence that comes from surviving adversity and knowing that you are prepared for whatever comes next. As night fell once again, I felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. The city transformed under the dim glow of streetlights and neon signs, and the shadows deepened. Somewhere out there, the cartel was plotting, watching, calculating. But we were ready. My team was ready, and I was ready. I looked at each of them, exhausted but unwavering. They were not just my team, they were my family in this line of work, and together, we would face whatever darkness came next. Because in this city, survival isn't given, it's earned through vigilance, courage, and unity. And I, Emily Parker, would continue to lead them through every chase, every threat, every mission, until the last shadow was brought into the light. The streets may be chaotic, the adversaries cunning, and the nights long, but we would never falter. We would never yield. We are SWAT. We are relentless. And as long as the city needed us, we would be there watching, protecting, and fighting until the end.